on the background. Hold on. I'm gonna try to stop it.
Okay.
We didn't hear any
Okay.
music on the video.
We can't
didn't
hear
hear
it.
anything.
Yeah, but I hear it. It's the
Okay.
presentation, the background that I had on the video for some reason kept running. So all yours.
Okay. So
Thank you. Thank you for listening with so much attention.
No, it was really, really interesting, and I had probably too many questions for what time we have left, but I guess the overall impression I have, there are a couple of things, and the things that I find interesting in art, and I guess one of it boils down to what I would call, I'm fascinated with the concept, it's from physics, but it's called emergent behavior, which is you can't predict what, if you have a bunch of pieces, you put them all together, you have no way of predicting what is going to come out of it. And I always find that, and that is kind of goes along with the other big influence that I see in yours is it's, and again, this is maybe just me thinking this way, but it's very, very Oriental, but specifically Japanese, and specifically Japanese pottery. Because I knew something, it's just the whole idea where they have imperfections. It's the whole idea of why
it's very linked in their way of thinking.
You don't know what you're going to get when you glaze it and you put it in the kiln and it comes out. So I found that really, really, really fascinating. And the way that I also enjoyed the way that you just go from one medium to one source of material to another, and that leads you, because I try to do the same thing, and I use over and over again, I'll use a monotype plate and do something else. So I found that interesting. So those are my the things that just fascinated by what you were saying. But I guess one of the things that it's a question is on the pieces that were kind of in the middle there that look like a bit like beans or like big jelly beans. How did you make those? Did you use a form or those cast, or how did you get those perfectly smooth shapes?
That was very, very, very difficult.
I would guess.
I was working for over 2 years actually with that idea, those little, as you said, little bins. So as you might have noticed, in my creative process, first comes the idea, and then I explore the mediums that allowed me to kind of answer and fall into that concept. So I had the idea that we all might seem similar as an individuals, right? As a person, we all might seem similar. We all have our luggage full of many things, right? We carry many things in that luggage, in that backpack that is with us all the time. But again, we have different wounds and different ways of healing and different stuff, and we deal differently with all that. So I was abstracting actually the idea of how can I create the sculptures, but because I felt for me were more meaningful to create something that I could hold like a baby, right? Like a little nurturing things, right? That I could nurture. So that's why it came the idea of something that was like a beam, like a neck, like the origin of something, of life. So that's the first kind of creative, thought process. So okay, so I was, how do I this with no knowing exactly how to create a mold or anything else. So I came up with the idea of something that allowed me to replicate that shape. So I was using balloons and things that were kind of round to work with the material and so on. I mean, it was quite a journey of very fun.
But they turned out great. They're really interesting.
Thank you.
And so the last thing, then, if anybody else says, when you said you used encaustics, and then when you said you got sick, because I've looked at encaustics, but it's very toxic, and it can be troublesome. And my personal experience with it, my younger brother, who's no longer alive, was a potter, but he did things with heavy metals and different things, and he inhaled too much of it.
Affect him. Yeah.
it killed him. Eventually, it killed him.
Oh
So,
my goodness. I'm really
so
sorry,
that
Peter.
I'm always curious because I think caustics are great, but you have to have a ventilation
Yeah,
then
definitely. Actually, in my case, it wasn't precisely the encaustic. It was more the use of the hydrocal, actually.
Yeah.
So how the hydrocal comes in a form, actually, it has two components, is a fiberglass, which is very extremely toxic, and then white cement. So that composition is called hydrocal, and the way, of course, is very dusty, but it's very thin. And I was having those Macs, but not the ones with, the big tube,
Yeah.
So my sinus got, very
Stuffed up.
Yep. Yeah, it was very, very hard time because it lasted, the infection and inflammation lasted for 8 years. So wow. I had a really tough time with that. And I wish to be able to find a way to create something, similar that allows me to bring those feelings. So, that's next step. I have to explore new materials.
Yeah. Well, those are my questions. Alan?
Yeah. I want to make a comment. To be honest, what little bit of your work I saw as we started, I didn't really get. But hearing your process, and hearing how articulate you were about how your work is a reflection of your human experience. I mean, it became deeply meaningful to me. And so, that's one reason I like to do these, because it helps me to understand the work and see the work in a whole new light, so to speak, since you talk about shadow and light a lot. So yeah, I thought this was really illuminating, and I really appreciated the way you talked about your work and your process and your journey, not as just as an artist, but as a human being, So the question I have, I'm so impressed how you decided to change careers and you just decided, oh, I think I'll be an artist. I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it's like, so then you started exploring with painting and drawing. And then all of a sudden you showed us you're in a gallery showing an installation and work. How did you go out looking for a gallery? Did a gallery find you? I mean, how did that happen? I mean, to me, that was a huge leap from going to, I'm going to explore being an artist, and all of a sudden you have a gallery to show your work and you're getting an invitation to show your work in places. I mean, how did all that happen?
Definitely I was lucky. Definitely I was lucky. I'm glad that you briefly, I want to comment to your observation. Definitely, actually, the first work that I show you is not meaningful in the whole, in the sense that to really value right now what I'm doing right now, but it's very meaningful because in a way, who am I as an artist is the psychologist that is behind. It's my structural, way of look at life and understand life and understand myself and my journey and my personal growth in this process of strong transition. It's very linked and important in the result that you see as art and creative process. So I wanted to bring a little bit of the very beginning as a reminder of the importance of, as you well pointed out, to look back, to see things with different perspective, to have a broader point of view and a higher point of view. And we need to do that in our lives, in our professional lives, in our creative life. So I wanted to kind of take a look on that and leave that reflection for you, for all of you. So, and then the second question, when I started taking the first drawing classes and painting classes, and For some reason, I really wanted. I'm a very I don't know. I guess the way our generation is being educated, that whatever you do, it needs to be meaningful, or it needs to be productive. I don't know if I have that on my mind, on the back of my mind, that I found that coming from a very high a very successful professional life from corporate, with a really strong training, with a degree in psychology, with an MBA, with a lot of expertise in that field. So coming to New York and then finding that wasn't really useful, in the sense that I did decide at some moment that I couldn't follow that path because family reasons, my kids being abroad, etc. And then I realized that then if I don't have that to apply it in whatever profession I want to pursue, what do I have, right? So when I started taking these first classes of art classes, first of all, of course, I got a therapeutical feeling. I mean, it was very, very, in that sense, very, very useful for me to be able to kind of face myself, silence my mind, and to think something else, but not what am I gonna do with myself? What's my next step? What's my purpose besides being my mom or being the wife of, or so for me were very difficult questions, and art allowed me to really get that moment of kind of peace, to really silent and go through. So that was first thing. And then the other part of myself said, okay, if you are taking this, then you have to make it count, and then let's enroll in a fine art program. So I did enroll in a 4-year fine art program in a school here in the city. I graduated in 2012 with this first solo show that I called Breathing. I love I love that show because for me it's a way. I did allow myself to be born again, to come up anew, to give me another chance to do something else that I wasn't kind of ready, prepared, or had training for. So that was very, very key for me to allow myself to go through. And then I started in 2013. I started visiting art fairs going on in the city. As you do in any other profession, you just write your resume. I mean, my resume back then as an artist were almost zero, right? Besides the training. But whatever I was doing before, I tried to link everything because it was actually, as I explained to you, it was actually what did define my art, the psychological, concept behind. And then I was, knocking some doors and presenting my artwork, and then luckily, actually, I encountered a gallery downtown in the Lower East Side in February 2013, so very close to my thesis, that were looking for artists, and they got in love with my work, and since then, actually, I've been working with them here in the United States. So it was, again, it was luck, in that sense, I guess.
Luck never hurts.
Funny enough, actually, I remember, if I can bring like a little bit of that moment, when I came to the gallery with a few samples of my work, the two owners, the two partners, of course, I've been a person who's been working in recruiting people. That was one of the tasks that I was doing in my work. So I knew how to interview someone, and I knew how to be in an interview, and I knew I had an extra, I guess, the skills developed. So I remember it was very funny because the first thing they asked me is to see my work. And I said, no, I'm not going to show you my work. You first need to listen. You first need to listen what's behind the artwork, because you need to understand who am I as an artist. And if you like who am I, you might like my work. So I was I don't know exactly how I did it that way, but it came up on my favor. So, and then I didn't really need to sell my work because I already sold the concept behind.
There's a question in the chat.
Oh,
have you seen it, Peter?
Yeah, I saw one. It was
yeah, Esther, do you just want to read it and respond to it?
I'm reading, yes. Okay, from Julia. Yeah, right, from Julia, right? At the start of the presentation, you mentioned it how once you moved forward from working in human resources and relocated to New York, you started seeking out more of yourself and your identity, and how that translated into your first works of art. Would you say your desire to seek identity, embrace curiosity, is what drove you to start making art? Or did you dive into the art first and consequently the art drove further curiosity to pursue it? Or perhaps both? So in my experience, I started playing with art and the creative process by chance. I mean, it wasn't, honestly, it wasn't in my map. I didn't have any exposure to artists, art life, not in my family, not in my life. So for me, stepping into or taking this step and taking these first drawing and painting classes were just a way to calm my mind, honestly. It was a way for me to find a peace that I didn't have, a mental peace that I didn't have. So when you do that, you use any tool. It could be art, it could be exercise, it could be taking care of yourself in a different way, it could be meditation, I don't know, any form, walking into nature, any form that allows you to connect to more essence, not just your mind, your thoughts, is going to silence that kind of monkey repetitive maybe background that you have constantly going on. So by doing that, in my case, I chose art without that intention, honestly, because back then the psychologist part of myself, it couldn't really guide me. I was very lost. No, I wasn't able to really even learn from my own expertise. So I was yeah, in a way it was random. And then it took me, that's not from night to day or day to night. It was something, it wasn't not something sudden. It was something that took me some time to really feel that I was like the puzzle was putting itself, together. So I guess it was a process. It was a process of allowing myself to be curious, allowing myself to accept change, allowing myself that things sometimes happen and you can't control, and sometimes you make a certain plan and life is capricious and derails you through some other path. And again, as I was doing, I mentioned actually before when I was talking about my paintings that I intentionally choose just a short amount of resources to build and to work, because in a way I replicate what we have in life, right? We don't have everything that we want to really move forward sometimes. So, but still we need to kind of make, adjustments. And once I heard a psychiatrist saying that we tend to force ourselves to make goals and to focus ourselves toward those goals. And we lose in that process, most of the time we lose the sight of the middle line of the process, of the step by step. That is where actually is located the growth, the learning, and the growth and the learning, and no matter the result. So I don't know, we need to kind of address all those that sometimes narrow our vision and our growth, as well. So I don't know, I hope, Julia, I did answer your question.
Looks like you did.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're kind of running out of time, but Esther, it was really great for you to share all that with us. It was, and that's why Alan had came up with this idea and why I was interested in working with him on it, because it's always interesting to hear, as an artist, it's always interesting to hear what other artists say. And a lot of it is similar, but all of it, much of it is also, I'd never thought of it that way, that kind of stuff. So it's always very interesting to get different perspectives. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you for allowing me actually to stop for 1 sec, 2 or 3 secs to really look back and put ideas together. I mean, I've been doing this quite often because that's part of the let's say my talk behind the artwork, but it's always a great reminder, because life in a way push you out of that calmness, and sometimes we need to find that space to really I don't know, it doesn't come up the word, but like to reroute or to recenter ourselves. So here I have one question that I might answer very quick. How do you get these enormous coffee filters? Here in this country, you in a click of a button, you get everything that you want. So those were actually from restaurants and big really large coffee filters. So wow. I guess they are used for restaurants or hospitals or big companies. Yeah, but they were really big.
Make lots of bad American coffee.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Esther. Appreciate it.